Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original SuperHouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true SuperHouse fan. We were SuperHouse at that time. The first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and nerd like the rest of us. And now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon.
Hey, what's that, April?
Some kind of weird Japanese antique egg timer.
Jane, I forbid you to leave the castle. You have disgraced me.
It is you who have disgraced me, Father, with your unjust war.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. This is your boy Wolfie here once again. Ohio gozaimasu, as Splinter might say. And I'm here with...
Konnichiwa, y'all. This is Andrew. And Ben is not here with us this time around, but we got an excellent episode here for you all here today. We're going to be covering, what is it?
In this episode, we're going to continue and conclude our coverage of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles core trilogy of films, live action with the costumes and all that. We're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
You wanted it.
It'll be good. Actually, I was kicking and screaming kind of going into it, and then actually enjoyed a little bit more than I thought I would out of the film. So it wasn't like a total shit show, much maligned. Not as good as the first one, but I wouldn't say it's like so much worse than the second one anyway.
If you haven't seen this movie since you were a kid, or you've never seen it, I have to say it's better than Batman and Robin is, and we gave that movie a decent review for what it was as well. If you go back and look at those episodes, listen to those episodes, like, it's fine. I hadn't seen this movie since I was probably 8 or 9 probably. You could tell even then. I think I saw it in the theater, I'm pretty sure. But I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing it in the theater. I remember
don't
seeing
remember,
Secret of the
yeah.
Ooze in the theater.
Yeah.
I remember them saying eclectic, and shit like that. I
Yeah.
don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I would have seen this. There's no world in which I would have not seen this in the
Yeah.
theater.
It's said to have done pretty well, actually, when it was released. It was just like critically panned and then just kind of dismissed right out the gate. They just pretty much, the budget was super small, so without, a healthy bit of imagination, it's a little rough. It's a little TV level film, but
Yeah.
But it does have a handful of things that stand out and that are, I think, valid to readdress, to reassess, if you will.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and I will.
On this episode, we're going to get into it a little bit and continue on in the tradition of our Ninja Turtles episodes. And with that, I'll just give you the main core facts and factoids. And Andrew's got some out of left field factoibles to share as well.
Factoibles.
That's a Superhouse superhero stuff coined phrase. Copyright. Without further ado, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, sometimes known with an incorrect subtitle of Turtles in Time, which did show up on a few DVD cases throughout the, at some point.
Was it really official on some cases after the fact?
It is. It appears that maybe what I'm guessing is like one of those multi-packs or something, and maybe they had that subtitle because at the same time that the movie came out, the game version, the SNES game and arcade version of Turtles in Time had been released.
That's the thing. So I did my own little research for this too. Like we said, I'll be giving some out of left field information later. But like most of my friends at the time in elementary school, I don't remember ever calling it Turtles in Time. That was a Super Nintendo game. Yeah. That's it. But I guess since, we left that movie, that's what's happened with that whole thing.
This could also be a case of the Mandela effect or whatever they call it.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, because I feel like I did see a collection of these films there, and it said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time. I swear I've seen it, but maybe it's just been implanted in my head by doing the research for this. It's one of those things. But I know for a fact that it's incorrectly subtitled, or if some dweeb on the streets wants to play it off as it is, just look up the information. It's not officially that. So.
Angry Video Game Nerd does point out in his review of it that in the poster there is nothing but black negative space under the 3, and so he speculates that there was supposed to be a subtitle like Secret of the Ooze.
Interesting, yeah.
Because the second one had it, why not the third one? So maybe it lost it somewhere along the way.
Time Scepter, yeah, maybe. It would have done well with a little bit more of a budget, but they must have just, we'll get into it. Released in 1993, it was written and directed by Stuart Gillard, who he seems to have had fun with what he was doing. Certainly he did. The dialogue is interesting, well textured, we'll say. It's based on the fictional superhero team, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and is the sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, as well as the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1989. It's the final installment of the original trilogy, and it was produced by Clearwater Holdings Limited and Golden Harvest, who was involved throughout the whole thing. And I don't think they really got it, Golden Harvest, honestly, in terms of marketing these. And throughout, the one thing that seems to have stuck out was that Golden Harvest kind of rushed things, especially going into the sequel. The story that was proposed and then the story it ended up with, it seems like for such a big property at that time, maybe if they cared a little bit, handled it with a little bit of TLC, it would have been a better trajectory of the rest of the trilogy. But I feel like Golden Harvest was just trying to sell as much as they could because they knew it was popular in the States and they had the license to the films because it was martial arts, but also I wonder if it was as popular in Japan.
I've talked with people about this, not about this movie, but just overall, popularity, and they do know of it, especially if they're around our age. They've probably not seen the cartoon, not very many, or even that Japanese version that had 6 episodes, or it was like a season. like they're aware of it. They are aware of it, but I don't think they know all that much about it. The weird thing is anime is such a huge thing in the West, not just America, but in Europe too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, American cartoons don't have the same kind of subculture vibe in Japan. They're aware of Family Guy and Simpsons and stuff like that, but they don't. It's just not like a whole subculture like it is here.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that is.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's my theory, is like maybe Golden Harvest was more, they were more interested in the aspect of it being a martial arts film in the parts that it was. But I think my theory is that they didn't have any idea what they were working with in terms of the cultural impact the Turtles had at the time. So that's why I think maybe, you know, fans and critics alike probably didn't like this movie as much. And I'm surprisingly, the attitude I have towards it now is like, you know, I did not expect. I really expected to just absolutely hate the entire experience of it. It is bad. It is bad, but it's not, you know, not as bad as Batman and Robin. I can agree.
Can I ask, what is the problem with this movie, you think, ultimately?
Pull up user reviews on the IMDb for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 to try and get to the bottom of why it's perceived as being so bad. The first one right out the gate is a 6 out of 10. It says, "I love it. An underrated, solid action, fun sequel from my childhood."
If you love it, you would give it more than a 6.
Right.
That's all I'm saying here.
He says, "Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, in my opinion, is an underrated, solid, good sequel to the original flick. Everyone hates this film and going from he's not a very good writer, going for the second film. This one gets the crap for it, and the second one gets the praised." Anyway, not to read his whole review, but going down another 6 out of 10, not the best, but still a laugh. 8 out of 10, good family fun. I remember when this movie came out, I was 9 years old, and I really loved this film. Now I'm watching it again, and I can see why it didn't get good reviews, but it's a family film. It's not good as the first two sequels, but still manages to hold its own. I bought the collection because I love the collection. I highly recommend watching at least once. The graphics are a bit dated on the Turtles, but still a good film. There aren't any graphics on the Turtle, but I get what you're saying. Okay, so those are the IMDb
Practical effects,
ones. Let's go to Rotten Tomatoes real quick. Because you know this is probably rated higher than RoboCop 3.
RoboCop 3 was, I feel like I can no longer trust Rotten Tomatoes. And a lot of people have already stopped trusting them. But I more or less like generally agreed with Rotten Tomatoes until I saw RoboCop 3. The tour de force that was that film. No, but I did think it was way better than 3%.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes for TMNT 3. The audience score of which is 34%. But let's see what some of the critics had to say about this. Less amateurish than the 1990 original, less embarrassing than the 1991 sequel with its mind-boggling Vanilla Ice Ninja rap number. This may be the easiest installment in the series for parents to sit through. That's not that negative.
Are you serious? See, yeah. I have a hard time believing that. What's the next one?
A decided case of diminishing returns. Leonard Clady from Variety. Okay. The wisecracks have been cut back, and where once the ninjas' dude speak was original, influencing, for example, Wayne's World, it's now merely imitative. I mean, I don't really agree with that. What they do in this movie is they throw out a joke every second. They don't all land, but the ones that do, I think, work. And a lot of those are due to Robbie Rist, who plays Michelangelo. I think he's actually a funny guy. And to me, that's the Michelangelo voice I hear in my head if I'm reading the comics, or you know what I mean? Yeah, true.
He's the Kevin Conroy of Michelangelo.
This guy's a total snob. The first film was bad. The second worse, and the third almost unbearable. James Bartonelli, Real Views.
Well, let me tell you something. That guy sucks.
Yeah, he's brutal. Jeez, have a laugh, guy. Live a little.
If you don't like that first Ninja Turtles movie, I got nothing to say to you. I got nothing to say to you.
This one's a very tepid one, but I think it's pretty funny. Ninja Turtles travel to ancient Japan. Some mild peril. Barbara Schulgasser from Common Sense Media.
But what do you think? What do you think is wrong? Why does this movie get like? Why is it the worst of the bunch?
I think it suffers from being overly kiddie, and not in terms of some of the heart elements to it, which I think it does have good heart. I think the Yoshi subplot is good with Raph. But I think just catering to a younger audience, and then having such a low budget, having the production company putting little faith into its creation, and just probably not seeing the returns that they want, went into the process of it being probably rushed. The plot itself is really choppy. The whole Casey Jones thing with the honor guard learning hockey and everything is like, it goes from being like Pee-wee's Playhouse with Casey Jones and Splinter and those guys, and then you get back to feudal Japan with the turtles and everything. It's like, oh, this is pretty engaging. This is kind of an interesting setting for these characters to be in. They should have had Splinter go with. But yeah, I think it suffers from its plot, its writing, and its pace. A lot of things.
Characters, pacing. Mainly, pacing and plot for the most part. I can forgive a lower budget. How many great, shitty horror movies are there with a low-ass budget? So what if Leonardo looks like he has buck teeth? Dude, the teeth look huge on this version of the Turtles. Brought to us by All Effects, apparently.
All Effects.
But it's hard to pinpoint because I guess it's just pacing and some plot points like the Casey Jones thing and all that, and there's not a whole lot of great like emotional scenes except for that Yoshi subplot and the grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see more of him too.
This
movie is all about Raph, seemingly. And they want to feel accepted, and they do feel accepted. It's a very good plot reason they feel accepted, because they saved that kid in the village.
Yeah. I do like that they addressed that like right at the beginning when Raphael's like throwing the tantrum or whatever. He's like, nobody knows we're down here. Nobody knows we're alive and shit like that. And it's always a question I've always been able to like suspend disbelief in order to like, oh, they're happy, they're fine. Turtles are having adventures, they're doing just fine. But truly, in this film, they go to address that. And when they're in feudal Japan, after they go back in time, they're, Raph and Mikey are like, we want to stay here. We're appreciated in this time. I thought that was pretty interesting. It was, those were the deeper parts that I thought were actually pretty good that were running through it. Also noticed that Donatello has a lot of screen time in terms of the fight sequences. It seems like with Raph and Leo, you got to limit the amount of swords and stabby objects. And Michelangelo, you got to limit his footage to a certain degree to cater to the UK market, because you can't show chain sticks.
Yes, that's right. I noticed this. I was going to bring this up later, but almost every single finishing move to the fight, with each dude that they fight is a kick. It's mostly kicks. In this movie,
Donatello gets a lot of good screen time and a lot of good bow staff use throughout the whole film. I noticed he's kind of front and center when it comes to fighting, which is pretty cool. When you think about Eastman or Laird's, I forget which, talking about saying that their favorite character is Donatello. It's like, these are one of the moments within the franchise that you get where you're like, I remember that, part 3 may not have been super great, but Donatello was fucking people up. He was fucking shit up, starting some shit in 3.
The fights still aren't quite as, even the fights aren't super great too. And there's no fight in the movie. I timed it. I stopped it because I wanted to see where it was. There's no fight until 30 minutes in.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I'm like, what are we, there's a lot of setup in this movie. And I think one of the things for me that was just so cringeworthy is I loved seeing Casey Jones back, but it's like they just had him repeat his funny lines and some of the Turtles' funny lines from the first movie just to keep your attention. And then the whole thing with the hockey thing, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. But I also thought they could have.
That was weak, very weak.
Yeah. And then how they had Elias Cotes play a character in the past named Wit, who, we perceive that maybe there's some ambiguous connection just because they're the same actor in some way. I really wish they would have it was already, the pot's already pretty full, but I almost wish they would have had him be a long lost relative of Casey somehow. but I don't know. It just seems like, why even do that? There could have been any actor for it to be him, and he had a terrible English accent. No offense, bro, but you know what I mean. Like,
it was bad.
I don't know. Yeah, those aspects I think really hindered it, and the costumes at first are really hard to accept based on the Jim Henson Creature Shop work from the first two films.
Yeah.
But I do get used to it by the end of it, and they looked pretty durable. They were doing a lot more acrobatic kind of stuff and hitting the ground with them. So I was like, very convincing, for
falling
what we
off
had.
the horses in that one scene.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Kudos to the turtle samurai armor, man. I love that shit where they have the like battle mask things going on.
That's the thing. This movie should be better than it is, because it is a move that you want them to do. Like, it's ninjas, right? You want them to go to Japan. And it makes sense in a lot of ways, but it's just, it just sort of falls apart, but it's not. Yeah. Again, go back and watch it if you're interested. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you are. It's not that bad, like we're both saying. It's okay.
Yeah. It when it starts off, it starts pretty rough too. It's really hokey. The jokes are half like conceived, and they're really rushing you into their big story build with this antique scepter thing. They have one in the future or in the present where we are, and there's its counterpart in the past, which is connected to this Japanese this family, this saga that's going on with this family in ancient Japan.
Yes.
Which, again, that like the scepter I think is cool. That that the shape of that thing is very iconic. I think if you were still buying turtle toys at this time, which we probably both were, that scepter was floating around everybody's toy box. TMNT 3 was a big part of my life in the action figure realm. I'm sure of it, with the samurai armor and everything.
I probably had that. I think I had the clown Ninja Turtles, at least one or two of them.
Oh,
I had the cowboy ones. All there was a point at which they were just pumping out all ridiculous versions, right? That weren't any. Yeah, I was buying a lot. I was buying a lot of that shit.
No, they were great.
Were.
And actually, it was with this sequel that the movie Stars Turtles finally got released. The ones that were a little bit more rubbery and had spots, they were a little bit more realistic.
Golden Harvest thought that the franchise had reached the end of its movie career. The project went forward with low expectations, little fanfare, and a modest $17 million budget.
Yeah.
The box office, it debuted at number 1, had a gross of $12.4 million on over 2,000 screens, grossed $42 million. Worldwide gross of $54 million. See, 42 in the U.S., 54 worldwide, so it's mostly U.S.
Yeah.
Barely more than half of that of the previous film, and roughly 1/4 of the first. Considered a disappointment, ultimately. Also, another little tidbit here. It was not screened for critics. They knew it was bad.
Yeah.
Unlike the two previous movies, New Line did not provide advanced screenings for critics until opening day. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like it was a case of like, we know the kids are going to buy it. The toys are the toy market's still huge. We know they're going to go to it. Like, why even send it to the critics so they can lambast, they're just all they're going to do is convince parents not to go take their kids to the movie. Probably not, though. They're just going to make for miserable parents. So
this
why
is the
even?
thing I thought too. Like, so they're probably shooting this film in 92-ish, maybe late 91, because it's going to come out in 93. Well, I guess that's still at the height, though. That's like the height of their popularity. But maybe they were starting to see the trend wane, like
right.
corporate projections or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
The thing is, like in our eyes, the Ninja Turtles boom was like, feels like it was 10 years long, because we were going through kid time, and kid time is very slow. But ultimately, it was like 5 years? It was 89 to 94, maybe 95.
It makes
By
sense.
the time Power Rangers were out in 95, 94, I think Ninja Turtles had more or less had its main run done.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I had X-Men to bridge the gap.
Yes.
You know, and then I think you're right, and then brings us into the Power Rangers as they were released. That sounds about right, because shortly after that, it was like into later middle school years.
It feels like it was forever, though. It feels like we were
totally.
Like, Ninja Turtles were a thing for such a long time. But if we weren't 5 to 10, it was probably not that long in adults' eyes.
Yeah.
Flash in the pan almost, which is kind of sad in some way, but
like if you dial it back, if you look at it on paper, these green Ninja Turtle guys and this wacky scenario they've been put in throughout comics and movies and cartoons and everything, it's like it doesn't seem like it should be something that works. And I think that's like the one of the great and funny things about the lasting legacy of it is that it's just like such a funky concept. It's like crazy enough to work, and at least for that amount of time it did. So in terms of Turtles 3 here, we saw the return of Casey Jones. Like we said, he wasn't in the second one. He was only in the first one. Last time we saw him and April were kissing, which was nice. And we also have the return of Corey Feldman as the voice of Donatello.
Sad.
Producers invited Corey Feldman to reprise his role for the first film as Donatello. The filmmakers told Corey they felt bad about not casting him for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. However, when Corey asked for more money than the $1,500 he was paid on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990, Corey was told, "Yeah, but you were in rehab." Corey was denied the raise and was again paid only $1,500 for his voice work.
That's just so insane. This is the most popular thing, at least in American, I'm assuming probably Canada too.
Right.
Like, and a lot of Europe as well. I have a Dutch friend that loves Ninja Turtles, but like, it's just crazy that he only got paid this much. He could pay, like, at that time, probably his rent 1.5 times. I don't know where he was living at that time in LA, but it's just nuts. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, you would think for a new film, his agents or his representation would have helped negotiate a better contract. But perhaps this was one of those projects. Maybe he was still going through a rough patch as he'd done this. I'm not quite sure the timeline, but Corey, we're glad you're not on heroin anymore.
Was it heroin?
And, I'm sure. I mean, there's a documentary about Corey Haim's life and like them together. I forget, the Two Coreys, I believe it's called. Yeah. Or is it a book, documentary, something? But an excerpt from that I remember seeing says something about like they were introduced to many different drugs very early on in their careers and their lives. So I believe he was in rehab during Secret of the Ooze for heroin addiction. I think is one of the things we did. Yeah, you got another tidbit. Let's ping pong here. What do you got?
Okay, ping ponging it. All right. Practical Effects Studio. Let's talk about it. Okay, the creature effects were provided by the All Effects Company rather than Jim Henson's Creature Shop this time around, which acted as the providers for the previous films. All Effects Company, they were known. They started in 1983. By a guy named Eric Allard. And they got known for making over 100 commercials with the Energizer Bunny. They made the fucking Energizer Bunny. Oh, wow. Those 80s. Yes. So they had a name for themselves. They've done this before.
That's a decent pedigree.
It's a decent.
We're working
decent
with 17
enough.
million.
Decent enough. They also worked on, I think, definitely after the fact, Demolition Man, Alien Resurrection, at least in part. A lot of times the big movies will hire several companies, but a movie called Virus, and then also Stuart Little, those were listed. So definitely Demolition Man, probably my favorite out of that list. But that's the main thing I got. But it's just, even though I respect the hustle, but they're just not quite as good as Henson, and maybe their budget just not a Henson budget.
They did okay,
They move around. I tell you what, though. I mean, I guess they all did this, but they're able to do full on crazy martial arts. You know, in these suits, and this guy was no different. Yeah.
The facial expressions were lacking in certain parts. There was one part where Michelangelo is looking really like he's supposed to be looking sad, as inferred by the dialogue or whatever, but it's like the machinery behind the mask is trying to figure out what is sad look, and then they cut the Splinter, and the Splinter one is like, it's just cheaper. It's like the same design, it's just much cheaper, and it's like these two machines that almost can't emote are trying to emote, and it was pretty rough. It was pretty comical, actually.
But I gotta say, I think they probably do this. I think they do this in the other movies too, but I noticed it more this time around. But Donatello does sort of have like geeky expressions. Mm-hmm. He's got like a dork kind of look, not just his face, but his actual expressions. They're able to kind of convey that pretty well. Yeah, Raph, pretty good. He's got the most emotional scenes too, which is cool. And Leo and Mikey's pretty funny, especially with the Hawaiian stuff. Leo really pretty much gets the shaft this time around, but it's fine,
Yeah. They give them each a few good character moments. I will say that I liked not all, but most of Michelangelo's humor in this. That's like the one thing that I get really fanboy about.
Because it can be cringeworthy sometimes.
Yeah, to me it can be like kind of cringeworthy if it's not handled right. And I feel like Robbie Riss, the guy who's done the voice for Mikey through all three films, he's the voice to me. And so a lot of these jokes fall flat in this third one, but not all of them do. I really liked the first time he meets Mitsu and he's like trying to hit on her or something, and just like as the scene ends and she walks away, Michelangelo's like, hey, what's your sign or something. Like he's still going. And the timing of it was really good. You could tell there's a lot of what's called punch up in this movie. Like back end jokes inserted. There's a lot of that, but I think
like cut away and they're saying a line offhanded or something.
Yeah, they must have bought Robbie Rist some Zimas and just had him go.
Robbie Rist, this is a really left field comment here. Robbie Rist, let me find my thing. He has a trademark R symbol next to his name in the credits.
Yeah, I saw that.
What the fuck is that all about? He's known for playing Cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch. That was a little before my time. I did watch Brady Bunch a little bit on Nick at Night, but didn't watch it a whole lot. This is another one, dude. This is a crazy one. I'll ping pong back to you in a minute.
Yeah.
Just after this.
Yeah.
Fucking Robbie Rist helped provide the music for Sharknado.
Nice. I like the multi-talented, Hollywood B-list that seems to go through some of these movies, man. It's great.
He voices Maroda in Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2 as well. And that's all I got for Robbie Rist. But
nice.
It's like a whole credit list going. I'm noticing it. It's like he's got the R symbol in the credits. I just thought it was so
I noticed that as well, yeah. There's also another... So some other returning cast members from previous films. Mark Queso, the performer inside of the Leonardo costume, is the only cast member to return from Secret of the Ooze. Brian Tochi, the voice of Leonardo, and Robbie Rist, who we just talked about, are the only actors who appeared in all three movies in the trilogy. The film's concept actually comes from a story called Masks from issues number 46 and 47 of the original Mirage comics. The story features the Turtles and a character named Renee traveling back to feudal Japan to fight an evil shogun and engage in samurai battles. This film is part of a multimedia feudal Japan Ninja Turtles event, with the Masks story first appearing in the comics in 92, the third film released in 93, and the Turtles and Splinter traveling back to feudal Japan to fight Shredder in a late 1993 episode of the cartoon. Since then, traveling back to feudal Japan has become a staple for the Ninja Turtles.
I did read that. Cool. Yeah. That's I'd love to read those comics. I've never read the original comics. I need to go and do that. There's always a Ninja Turtles around. Yeah, I mean, is Rise of the Ninja Turtles still going on in Nickelodeon?
Yeah, it's still going on. I think it's going into its final season. Don't quote me on that. I still got to go watch through that, but I've seen a couple episodes and the animation is good. Can't tell you a whole lot of what's going on, but it's definitely a different flavor than what we're used to and probably the next generation but I really appreciate it, and now, I'm starting to embrace these different iterations of Turtles. If you can swallow the pill that is TMNT3, it's not that big of a pill, but if you can swallow it, then you could probably deal with these other iterations. And
it's almost a non-comment, but like as long as it's good, I don't care what it is. As long as if you change it up, whatever you do, if you change a few elements here and there, as long as the actual story itself is good. I'm not really one to get super stuck on canon. I'm just not that kind of guy, generally speaking.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's cool to see how, because we're always going to have these core 4 characters. Well, 5 if you count Splinter, you know, and then the other ones, April and Casey, tend to come along in different iterations as well. But you have these core characters. They're gonna stick around. You know, they're like any great superhero, Batman or Superman. They're it's the changes that make them fun throughout time, and I like that, because you know your knee-jerk reaction is like, no, it's not the same as the thing I love, but a little bit down the line, as you are able to absorb that, as the hype simmers down, as the dust settles over the criticism, you're able to appreciate the Turtles for what they are, and in each iteration, what generation they're for. And I certainly do, even though the Michael Bay ones are kind of at the bottom of my list for sure. I was pleasantly surprised to find TMNT 3 is not all that terrible. You know, it suffers from some pretty glaring kind of things here and there, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
I could have done without the overacting British guys, but they fulfilled their role to a T. I hate them, and we saw them get their comeuppance, so you know, no big deal. I also thought the fighting was
British guys it's a good villain. It's like it's almost like Nazis and Russian commies. You know, like there's just something about, especially just the history of British Empire fucking over a lot of nations.
Which also there's, you know, in retrospect, there's somewhat of a fair bit of representation here in that regard. You know, there's like, you have the feudal lord and Kenshin, his son, and they're conflicting, and you have
I would like to say something about that too. They go in and out of speaking Japanese, even amongst each other.
And
like
English,
sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. There's not a whole lot of logic to it. At least they explain a little bit how the British are there teaching people and the missionaries. Donnie says something, gets interrupted in that one scene, which is cool. Vivian Wu, she is Chinese, but she says one line in Japanese, and her accent's pretty damn good. And the other dudes, like the hockey dudes, do seem to be straight up Japanese. So like obviously no issue there. Just trying to notice any kind of like accent problems, but yeah, that was, you know, that part, the actual Japanese part of it, the way the castles look, the costumes, the Sab Shimono playing the Shogun or whatever he is, that's all good, you know. I mean, I'm bringing this up because you brought up, you know, diversity or whatever in a movie this old. Mm-hmm. And that part is handled fairly well overall.
And even though April, I don't want to leave this episode without mentioning Paige Turco's April. Her final turn as April in this film. She was good. I liked how her hair was short and she was a little bit more involved in this one. I could honestly have done with a 4th installment with Paige Turco doing April again. They have her cut the samurai kimono short to make like a little samurai skirt kind of deal, to give her more mobility, comfortability, to show her legs. I don't know, take your pick.
Mostly show her legs.
Show her legs, yeah. But it was cool in that regard to see her like kind of trouncing around with the turtles in ancient Japan and kind of going off on her own little small story. They kind of played more into exploring some of the characters a little bit more, which was fun. I don't think she was given a whole lot to work with. Same thing with Casey, but I think what they did was good. It was nice to see them at the end. They're all laughing as the final dance number. So I'm like, they didn't really address whether or not they're a couple still or whatever that's going on there. But, you know, everybody's a group of friends. You know, everybody's all together.
How'd you feel about the turn that British Casey does where he turns out to be evil?
It was fine. You know, I felt like they could have consolidated the character, get rid of the little sniveling, what would you call him?
The main British goon?
Yeah, the main British goon. I could not stand that guy. I could go
I believe you must mean John Aylward.
John Aylward,
who
yeah.
plays Grandpa Bill in Shameless right now.
I like this actor. He's done many a good thing in Hollywood. He's a recognizable face, but the direction in this, in terms of some of the acting, or I don't know what's going on here, but his performance is so cringeworthy throughout this whole film. I mean, leave it in. It's comical for that respect.
I
but
didn't think it was out of place.
No, he was.
He's being upstaged by the main guy.
Yeah,
but that's why that guy's the main guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those guys are slimy to me. Maybe it's just a bias because they're the bad guys.
You hate British people. Let's just get it out there.
Oh God, I'm outed. But to answer your question, it was a good enough twist, and I suppose even having Elias Cotes play that role to give us a familiar face and what's this guy's motivation? What's he all about? Only to have him turn evil, it's kind of getting the payoff of Casey turning evil without Casey having to actually do that. So it's an interesting emotional device that was used, I'll say, and April has feelings for that situation because he is so familiar to this other person she knows in the present time, which that's why I think if they would have just, they already had a bunch of junk in this thing to begin with. So why not just throw another piece on the pile and make it like some long lost relative of Casey instead of naming him Whit, just call him call him Jones or something, I don't know. It could be right on the nose. Who cares,
Yeah.
But I think that would have gotten a little bit more of that emotional payoff. Maybe, I don't know. It was there. It was interesting. I feel like they tricked us, but it was there.
Okay.
Into feeling something, something in particular by casting him that way. Because otherwise, it's weird. Is he just getting 2 paychecks? Like, do they not have an actor? Like, what's going on there? If there isn't a connection.
They like the guy and they want to have more shooting days.
Yeah,
and it's just funny to see those people, a different version of the same character. Really, that's what I think it is.
Yeah. It was cool. It was cool to see. I do like Elias Cotes when he comes back as Casey that first time, even though the jokes are really weird. It's like Saturday morning guest spot on another TV show or something. It was so weird.
Other thing I wanted to say about the jokes, now that you mention it. Okay, there's references to Columbo and Clint Eastwood and Elvis. They're just too old even for kids in 93. Yeah. I didn't even know who Clint Eastwood was probably when I saw this. I didn't watch Westerns when I was 9. I just feel like the humor is a lot of the references, like the Hawaii stuff, Mikey's pretty funny with that, but the references that they make, it's what dudes that write it or the comedians, it was for their generation, I guess. Maybe it was for jokes for the parents in the theater at the time. I don't know. It just seems old.
My theory behind that is that this movie is for grandparents' time. This is grandparents' weekend. The parents get, the new Ninja Turtles is out and it looks like shit. Let's send the kids to the grandparents and be like, take them to the new Ninja Turtles. They'll love it. And then the grandparents are like, man, I don't get these talking turtle people at all, but I get some Elvis Blue Hawaii. I get some Clint Eastwood.
The
all
Blue
right.
Hawaii thing. What are we talking about? It's funny. It's funny that a little bit funny that he does it, but it feels old. It feels like Donnie has not created a way to watch TV in the sewer.
Right.
That's what or at least cable at the time. They only have old movies down there, and that part kind of bugs me because I feel like it should be funnier, And I have a side point to this, but I'll get to it later. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, to add to that, the anatomy of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 joke is this. When they have Michelangelo wearing the lampshade, which he received as a gift from April before she goes on to vacation. I don't know anybody who buys gifts for people before they go on to vacation, but that's what she's doing.
Oh, that's right.
She gives him a lampshade, so he's like, his first thing isn't to attach it to a lamp that he already owns that maybe has a broken lampshade, like she knew about it and she was gifting it because he would enjoy that. She just gives him a lampshade and immediately goes onto his head. And the joke is, as somebody's writing it in the script, is, hey, I'm Elvis from Blue Hawaii, and there's no laugh track. There's no laugh track to cue you to laugh at that, but it's registering on the base level of comedy, on the base level of our reptile brains, to give it a chuckle just because it's uncomfortable not to at this point. And so a lot of the jokes in the film,
about it way more than it deserves credit, I think.
Just breaking down the structure of how the jokes work in TMNT 3. They're all on this base level of cheapness, is I guess my overarching point.
I just found, you found the humor in something that
but I
thought was okay. I found the humor in this mostly just old ass references, even for the time.
Yeah. It's definitely suspect and could be perceived as like some new, some hidden detail, the same, some hidden detail that maybe they only get old movies down there or something, and that's all they have. Could be cool, but unnecessary. And why is it that's the level of comedy that they're working from? You're right. It's strange.
It's just bad. The side topic I have with this is, if you have the word teenage in the title, and this obviously it's the first word in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're going to have to tweak that to what teenagers are now. So does Donnie watch a bunch of YouTube, and is Michelangelo watching Twitch a lot? The fuck sports do kids play these days? Is that what Raph is doing? It's like you have to, what the fuck is a teenager now? And that's what you kind of have to, kind of redo some of that. Like,
yeah.
And surf. The cool thing is, skateboarding and surfing even are more popular than ever, so that part can stay in. All that kind of stuff. But I wonder.
Right. Yeah, it's they handle it well in the 2012 series and kind of show a little bit more. Like Mikey's they've all got little smartphones and they've got video games and. They're in touch to a certain degree. So for whatever reason in this movie, the humor seems to be a bit out of touch. But yeah, I think you're right. A key to these characters is figuring out what is a teenager at that time and place. I think Rise also does a lot of this stuff too, where there's a lot of, there's a different style of comedy now that comes from that younger generation that is related to that generation. So, we may not get it even in our heads as 36-somethings, 36-year-olds, but grandpas and even our parents probably don't get half of what's going on there. But, I think it is crucial to the longevity of these characters and with different iterations for sure.
You have to update.
Yeah. Seth Rogen and his production company and Evan Goldberg, his writing partner, are putting together the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. And one of the quotes that came out, I'm paraphrasing, is that they're going to concentrate mostly on the fact that they are teenagers then and there, and how their ninja training relates to that, and how they're perceived in the world and how they perceive the world around them relates directly back to that. So I think that's cool. It sounds like in good hands, in my opinion. I think
Seth
be really
Rogen's
awesome.
a great pick for this.
Yeah.
What other ninja nuggets you got for me, bro?
So I got another smaller ninja nugget just to round us out, and we'll do some indeeds after this. But in the original comic books, the Time Scepter is normally associated with a character called Renee, which I mentioned a little bit before, who is the Timestress, apprentice of Lord. She's the apprentice of Lord Simultaneous, which I think is an awesome
That's a
bad
cool
guy
name. That's
Yeah.
a cool name.
Yeah, and she often encounters a character called Savanti Romero. None of these characters appear in the film, however, but it's nice to know that Time Scepter is floating around somewhere. And this is, like we were saying about canon and everything. To me, I don't need like a complete stretching story from beginning to end through generations of these characters. I like the new iterations. I don't like thinking of things as remakes so much, but I like the updated versions of my favorite characters. I think most people do, but there are those critics out there maybe who think it's such a rehash. We are going to get Batman movies at least within every 5 years, like we're going to get them. So enjoy.
Yes. It's,
same thing with
it's
Turtles.
gonna happen.
Yeah. Turtles and all these like fan favorite kind of franchises. Anyway, so out of 10 indeed. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Before we do this, can I go over just a few more notes, and you can edit any which way you want it?
Yeah.
Just to give you more here. Going with the scepter thing, there's supposedly there's DVD and Blu-ray cases of the movie that instead of the scepter, they're holding a sword. So this could allude to the fact that it was supposed to be a magic sword instead of the scepter at first. And maybe this person that wrote this online, either they're correct or somebody for some reason changed the scepter into a sword in Photoshop way after the fact.
Yeah.
But
that'd be a silly thing to do. That'd be a really deep cut troll.
So it's probably just a magic sword, which is cool. And side tangent to that is, I don't know why they call this thing an egg beater. Why the fuck egg timer?
Or she calls it an egg timer. Yeah.
Yeah. Who has an egg timer that looks like that? That's not. It looks like a fucking lantern. Just say it's a lantern, or
it's
something like that.
It's another one of the mysteries of the complex nature of the sense of humor that runs through the life, through the veins of this intelligently crafted sequel.
Killing me with that stuff. For the cast, Vivian Wu was also in The Guyver.
Oh yeah.
She was apparently got famous being, I think, in the play The Last Emperor in China, I believe. She was in the Joy Luck Club and Heaven and Earth. These are Chinese films.
She played Mitsu?
Yeah. And then
she's great, actually.
Yeah, she was good. And she starred with Ewan McGregor and Peter Greenway's award-winning The Pillow Book. I remember seeing that a little bit here and there in the 90s.
Cool.
And she's still working. She was in 2019, she was a series regular on Netflix's Away. That's a show that Netflix made. Sab Shimono, the guy with the fucking hair. The Shogun, I don't know why he had that fucking thing, but anyway, don't know why they made that choice. But he voiced Subotai in Conan. He's also in DC's Legends of Tomorrow as Ichiro Yamashiro. He's
Conan?
In Conan he's Subotai. Or voice
Conan.
Conan.
I thought, never mind.
He voices some voice in Samurai Jack, and he's also voices Dr. Murakami in the 2012 TMNT show.
Nice.
So he's still in the mix.
That's cool.
Main evil
TMNT
British
fam.
Yeah. Main evil British dude Stuart Wilson is also in Hot Fuzz as Dr. Robin Thatcher. And I tried to find anything on Yoshi, played by Travis A. Moon, but this apparently was his only role ever.
Oh, wow. He was good.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. And by the way, just two more things before I wrap up. Let's talk about what I think we both think is, well, not just one scene, but like they're connected scenes. The best scenes in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Raph or Michael? It's Raph going into the fire, right?
It's Mikey who goes into the fire, actually.
Mikey goes in the fire.
Yeah.
Probably should have been Raph just to keep things whatever, but yeah, that's good. And then Raph, does he even fucking cry in that scene when he's hugging Yoshi with the yo-yo?
Right.
Those are two really great, solid scenes. Like this, it's not quite to the level of Ghost Splinter in, Above the Fire in Ninja Turtles 1. That's one of the best scenes. That's an awesome scene. That's a great scene.
Right.
Doesn't get to that level, but it's pretty good. It's probably got more heart than any of the scenes in the second movie. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I think that the Raphael and Yoshi scenes, especially that one right before they go off to the battle and everything, really, really save the movie for like giving it a really worthwhile substance out of the whole thing. And then Mikey's heroics and stuff and just the way that they're revered in feudal Japan and how it gives them something new, to work with. And we really got to see a little bit more emotional context or a little emotional content with the turtles near the end of this film. I think you're right. Those are two of the best scenes.
All right, so another big part of this movie is it's got the kappa, Kappa, in Japanese kappa. The kappa is like it's what you call a yokai, which is essentially basically a monster in Japan. You've probably heard of Oni, which is demon, and Tengu is another big one. There's probably thousands of these. There was a show called Yokai Watch in Japan, an anime a few years ago that was supposed to be the next Pokemon, but it never really quite caught up. I don't know if you were catching yokai, but there was a lot of yokai in it. Okay. And Kappa's one of these. It translates to river child, also known as Kawataro, which is basically river boy. And I didn't know this before researching it, but there's another term called komahiki, which means horse puller. I'm sure there's some historical reason for that.
Whoa, yeah.
Kawatora, which is river tiger. Suiko, which is water tiger. There's a bunch of names. Again, Japan's old-ass country. There's a lot of historical reasons for all this stuff, I'm sure. And, the words change based on the local dialects and things like that. But it's funny because, the kappa are basically like a monster turtle-looking thing. And they're like green human-like beings. They got webbed hands. Mostly turtle-like. They have a carapace on their back, a shell, and but the thing that's different though from Ninja Turtles, of course, is they don't do fucking martial arts for one, as far as I know, and they fucking have a dish, like a depression on their head, like almost like a monk, like a European monk would have, like that bowl cut called tonsure. They got this depression on the hair, literally, like you could put water in it. And and it said if the water in this, if this depression is damaged or the liquid is lost either through spilling or drying up, the kappa can be severely weakened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Completely Go ahead.
It is a kind of a fun kind of coincidental connection there that the kappa do share some similarities with the turtles, because in the movie it's like this this historical fable that the daimyo follows of his ancestors being shamed by the kappa, and they have this painting of it. It's another one of those things that's shoehorned into the movie, but it is kind of cool that there is this yokai out there, the kappa, that shares some similarities with them, and how that played into the story. Even though it seemed like kind of an added-on thing into the script or whatever, maybe not. It seemed okay. I think that's pretty.
It's not bad.
Interesting.
I mean, it's not. Again, it's like the Japanese side of this movie is not all that bad. Like it's
right.
Connecting kappa with Ninja Turtles is pretty cool. It's a real cultural thing, man. So I thought, it's a good idea. The kappa are known to like cucumbers, and if you get cucumber sushi in Japan, it's called a kappa maki.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, and just one last thing, it's just something you got to know about the kappa.
No, I love it.
They're accused of assaulting humans in water from water. They're good and bad, depends on it depends on the kappa, I guess. But they're known for trying to remove a mythical organ that humans are supposed to have called a shirikodama from the victim's anus. And I think in modern times, I think that generally it's from a river, right? They're called river boy and shit. But obviously, I think in modern times they come up through the toilet. And grab whatever creepy. From your ass. Remember, Ninja Turtles are cute, but yokai, more or less, there can be cute versions of yokai, but there's obviously a very R-rated version of yokai too. These are cultural, mythological monsters. These are demons. There's some good ones too. It depends. Right. But it's like
great.
if you fill up the depression on their head with water, the kappa will serve you for all of eternity. I read.
Whoa.
There's a shrine there's shrines to them as well. There's kappa shrines. one in particular in Aomori Prefecture. There's one called Kappadera, also known as Sogen Temple, in Kappabashi in Tokyo. So it's around, man. They're around.
That's interesting. That's cool.
But yeah, so probably more connected to Shinto than Buddhism, but that's the whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But yes.
For what it's worth,
yeah.
For what it's worth, I think they did a good job of having a well-informed, a fairly well-informed feudal Japan setting that we got in this film. That was like really, I thought that was going to be one of the more boring aspects of it, seeing them displaced out of New York, but it was actually really great. The adventures that they could have. It's good to know that that's kind of like a thing that they do now as well, because turtles in feudal Japan, it just works. It's super cool.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we've said this many times throughout this, but it's bad, but it's it's okay.
Yeah.
You wanted to go over Indeeds?
Yeah. So out of 10 Indeeds, how many do you give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3?
Going in with super low expectations, I give it's in the 5 range, maybe 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty high.
Pretty high, huh? Well, I mean,
4.5?
I was expecting
yeah.
a 1 or a 2. So
I'll
first
give
one's
it
a 9, 9.5, easy.
9.5. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'll give this one, I want to say a 3.9, just skirting the edge of a 4 there. And not because, it is not so great, and I mean I can take it. I can enjoy parts of this movie. I know that now. I don't know that I'll ever see it again. I don't know that it'll ever come up. But if it does, I won't be mad about it. I'll be like, actually, maybe even have a little conversation there about it in the boring parts. But yeah, I would say about 3.9.
What's the best thing about this movie?
The best thing about this movie to me, I think the best thing about this movie is that it's somewhat unapologetic about its structure, its plot, its writing and everything. It doesn't sit too long on making this thing Citizen Kane, because it knows it's not going to be. So it just kind of like cuts through everything possible that could work. And a lot of things kind of fall flat. A lot of jokes fall flat. Some of the stunts fall flat. I like the fighting scenes, but I don't think that they're super great or anything.
They're not really memorable, man.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like you have like the comedic
my
fellow chucker, and all like those kind of scenes, and it's just not all that memorable in this one, really.
Yeah. Hold on. After that all being said, my favorite part of this movie is Donatello getting to whoop some ass. I guarantee you this is one of the few times you really get to see him. That's not true. They usually get some good fighting, but I liked that about this. That was my favorite part.
I always feel like they're good with Donatello, but the fact that they can't do a whole lot with half the team, which is Leonardo and Raph, it's just and even Michelangelo, like you said, in the UK, that really does suck. And hopefully we're in a different place. Hopefully Seth Rogen can fix this, and they need to look, man. I know it's Ninja Turtles. And ninjas, they're using mainly Okinawan weapons, and there wasn't historical. Well, I think there might have been some ninja in Okinawa, but like the sai, for example, and nunchucks are super Okinawan. That not really a mainland Japanese thing historically. But I would love for them, if they got to do it. It's their weapons, but get some real sai shit in there, like I feel like we never really see like fucking Raph tearing it the fuck up, flipping it. You can flip those things. I know it's probably hard with their fucking suit
fingers
on,
Yeah.
But I'm sure you could do something, and I'm sure I haven't done it recently, but I'm sure there's some incredible sai kata on YouTube right now, and it's like, get that guy, get that girl in the suit. Who gives a fuck? They're wearing a suit. Like, you know, have like the most. My wish for you, Seth Rogen, is to have the most incredible but also traditionally correct weapon work in the next iteration. and sometimes with Michelangelo especially, I feel like they're kind of like whipping around pretty good because we've seen great nunchuck work with Bruce Lee and even Michelangelo mainly, and swords they're in everything, so that's easy enough. But I think I don't know why I'm on this tangent, but the Sai, it's just I feel like there hasn't been that amazing Sai scene in any movie. Maybe there's a Japanese movie out there that I'm not aware of, but it's fertile ground for a writer in Seth Rogen's court to really stake his or her claim. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It's new. Sure. It would be new. And of course all the other weapons as well.
Yeah, let's really raise the stigma of ninja weapons in popular culture. This is ridiculous. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Ninja weapons are wonderful.
Yeah, they are. Back to the review, 4.5, probably 5. Yeah, 4.5, 4.75 maybe. 4.75, that's the review. That's the number.
All
and it's the Yoshi scenes were great. I wanted more from the grandfather. Casey, they didn't know what the fuck to do with. They should have had a monster. They should have gone back and had another not the British dudes. They didn't have the budget though, which sucks. But they couldn't have made one more suit, one more Toka Razor type of cheap suit.
Yeah,
Splinter
or actually
Splinter looks
incorporate.
awful in this, by the way, this is the worst Splinter.
Yeah, he looks terrible. Actually, incorporate Kappa in there and get some old turtle suits or some other molds and rough them up or something. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, Splinter's rough too. There was a fourth film planned originally. Apparently, there's a fourth installment called TMNT: The Next Mutation. And in this concept, the ooze that transformed the turtles and Splinter was still in their bodies, causing a much more drastic second mutation. Another plan was discussed that was to add a fifth turtle named Kirby, named after comic artist Jack Kirby. However, the project got stuck in development and plans for a fourth theatrical live-action movie fell apart.
Okay, so I have some more information, and they would get new powers, all right? Mikey would have developed a human-like appearance that would allow him to go to the surface. Donnie's eyesight would have faded, and he would make special goggles that allow him to see better.
Interesting.
Leo would change his skin to a chrome-like surface.
Badass.
Raph would have turned more monstrous. And get this, Splinter would have bulked up.
Interesting.
Okay? And they're also... Casey Jones would have gotten electrical fists, and there would have been an evil April O'Neil. It was going to have... There's concept art for Fang, another Shredder, a guy named Spider, Nano Spider, I think another Super Shredder.
Wow.
And they would have met the Cyberfoot.
Holy
this
shit.
sequel would have gone fucking ape shit.
That sounds incredible. First of all, they've been trying to put goggles on Donnie for a while now, it seems.
Yes, I know. I don't know why they want to do that.
Yeah, so we got that much. That's an interesting take. That would have been a pretty cool adventure. Really nuts, actually. The Cyberfoot, is that what you said?
Yes, the Cyberfoot.
Nano Spider. This artwork looks awesome.
There's some info. Most of the time, they're calling it the next mutation. That is what mostly comes up. But I did find in one source that it was called TMNT4, The Foot Walks Again. Mm-hmm. And that was written by Craig Shapiro and John Travis. That's cool. All kind of the same thing.
I wonder if there are scripts of that floating around.
Dude, if we find that would be sweet. It might be. There might be something around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. It would have been an insane sequel. But yeah, dude.
But yeah, with all that being said, I think, unless you got anything more,
the notes are done, man. Thank you.
I think we covered all that there is needed to be said about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. It's not great, but it's not the worst. It's definitely the worst of the trilogy, but it's not the worst movie. So, if you're ever stuck watching it, just try and find something you like about it. Or, I mean, you don't got to watch it. I'm just saying if you're entertaining some Turtle fans that happen to be watching it and you don't want to be a jerk, There's some parts that are okay.
It's fine. I'm glad we covered it, and just for completion's sake, and yeah, I mean, Ninja Turtles 3.
Yep.
You know, you have to go out of your way to watch it, but hey, there it is.
So this is your boy Wolfie. Thanks for joining us for this episode. It surely was a lot of fun. Actually, I think we covered a lot of good ground here and learned a lot of new things about stuff we didn't know about this movie or Turtles in general.
I'd like to thank Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Aaron Willett, Ian H, Dan D, Leome O, and Super Infra Man. Please join the Shasta Army and check out that $5 tier in which you get the bonus feed. Every week we have another episode. We do deeper dives and news and things like that. That's the $5 tier. And the Shasta Army, just the $1 tier, you get a shout out on the show. And we'll probably add more to the $1 tier as well later on. Please leave us a review on iTunes. And also, please take out your phone, use your phone, your voice recorder app, and record us a little something, and then send that little something to SuperHousePodcast at gmail.com, and we can put that little thing you recorded on the show. And I am Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. Check us out on YouTube if you're not already. Just search for Superhero Stuff You Should Know on there. It should come up. And that's it. Cowabunga, y'all. I'm out.
And this is Wolfie signing off.
This has been brought to you by the SuperHouse Podcast Network.
If you like what you heard and you want to support the show or the SuperHouse Podcast Network, go to our Patreon at patreon.com/SuperHousePodcast.